Hello, I'm Kate Tucker, and this is week 23 of Reasons to Hope. We are really excited about something brand new over at Root and Vine and Consensus, and that is the podcast Hope is My Middle Name, where I get to introduce you to the voices and the people behind the stories that we get to tell at Consensus, the people that you encounter on Root and Vine. And our first episode just launched last Thursday with a remarkable story of grief and transformation healing out on the Appalachian Trail. So, welcome. I'm so glad to see you all. I'd love to see what's giving you reasons to hope today. You can drop those in the comments throughout our time together. And remember, there are so many ways that you can share with the community your experiences writing your daily five and the ways in which gratitude is transforming your life. I know for me, I am really excited about it being summer, and I just wrote a whole story on the great outdoor adventure of gratitude, but I actually am not an expert at all on getting outside. Someone else is. She's on the podcast, that first episode. You can check it out on Hope is My Middle Name, but I thought it might be more exciting to introduce you to her in person here today. So I think I'm going to invite, I think I see you in there, Brittany Cummins, to join us on Reasons to Hope. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing great. It is so nice to see you again.
It's so good to see you. I just love talking with you. Brittany and I have gotten to do an interview for a story we wrote on Root and Vine, and then also, of course, for the podcast. So thanks for doing a third conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I love these conversations.
Oh, well, I want to know, every time we talk, you've just come back from some epic journey. So what is the latest and the greatest outdoors?
Well, this week I am still actually recovering from this weekend's hike. I did a loop through Shenandoah National Park. So it was about 30 miles that turned into about 32 because of one wrong turn, but that happens. And but it was absolutely gorgeous by the end of it. I got to do a rock scramble. So you got to, you're literally hand over fist climbing up the rocks with a full pack on and trying to squeeze that pack through little crevices to kind of, get up, and your legs are exhausted and tired, and made it all the way to the top though. And got to take in those gorgeous views, and it was about 90 degrees, but then that breeze comes up and just washes over you, and it feels almost like air conditioning, or at least it seems that way compared to the hike. So it was a beautiful time. I just absolutely loved it. So it was a ton of fun.
I love how you say you got to do what did you call it, a rock scramble?
Yes.
Which sounds absolutely terrifying to me, but the way you're describing it, it also seems like something I have to learn how to do. And so, I mean, what do we do to get started? Like, how does someone start hiking? How did you start hiking?
Well, so I started hiking. When I was a kid, our vacations, we didn't go to Paris. We didn't go to Rome. We didn't do all these overseas things. My parents really believed that we live in a beautiful country, and that we should explore that. And so all of our vacations when I was a kid was to the national parks. And my parents have actually set a goal of seeing every national park, and they've made tremendous progress on that goal. And so, as kids, we started even at little ages, we were with all of our cousins, and our parents and our grandparents would trounce us all out together to the national parks. We have one in North Dakota called Theodore Roosevelt National Park that we went to almost every year together as a family with our grandparents. And we would go out and just explore. And there was like freedom to explore, and they'd let us kids run around. We'd get to play in the sand dunes. But at that time, a 1, 2, or a 5 mile hike was pretty long. I remember one time when we went to Big Bend National Park in Texas, we had gone on this 10-mile hike, and I still remember it. It seemed so onerous. It was so long, which is funny to think back on. I would now call a 10-mile hike a Nero, almost nearly zero. So, times have changed a little bit in terms of what you think about distance. But, anybody can really start. The rock scramble that I actually did this weekend, I didn't do the whole loop with my mom, but one of the times that my mom did come out, she's pretty good at hiking, but she's not a rock scrambler to begin with. And and I took her on this hike, wanting in part to inspire her as well, to show her just how much we're all capable of. And
Yes.
we had gone on this hike, and we get to the top of the summit, and she looks at me and she was like, Britt, I don't know that I can make it down. I am exhausted.
That is a huge fear I
And,
have.
and of course, I mean, everybody's exhausted. The kids who are up there are exhausted. And I just looked at her and I said, I bet you can. And she said, I really don't know. And I said, what if I told you that there was a bear about 10 feet behind you? And she's like, that's not funny. And I said, well, turn around. And sure enough, there was a black bear right over the back of her shoulder. And she got up, she took off, forgot about her daughter back there. I cleaned up the food that we were eating and followed her back down. But sometimes we need a little self-motivation, and sometimes it's just a bear in our background that says, you know what, you got to do it.
Just a bear. Just a bear. Well, I don't want to, there's no big spoiler alert on the podcast because I want everyone to go and hear it. But I will say that this morning I woke up pretty tired and I was thinking about gratitude and about what you say in the podcast about being out on trail. You can pretty much fix anything because you're so focused on the things that really elementally matter: food, water, and shelter. So in that case, your mom's concern of her fatigue, etc., is once the bear shows up, like nothing else matters and she's down the hill in no time. Well, I was thinking about that today with some of the things that I'm going through and thinking of ways that I'm experiencing gratitude, but also how exhausted that I feel lately. And I was like, okay, elemental truths. What is, like, where am I? And like, what do I need food, water, shelter wise, even though I'm in my house and I'm not on a 2,000-mile hike. But, I think that it's so powerful. The things that we learn outside in nature, it's just, you almost like feel them in your body versus just hearing about them intellectually.
That for a second, it blinked out on me.
Oh, well, welcome back. Awesome. Well, for all of you who are here, this is Brittany Cummins. She is my guest on our new podcast, Hope is My Middle Name. You can find that on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, or really wherever you listen. And she's also got a couple stories up on rootandvinenews.com. I would love to hear what national parks you all are going to this summer, or what ones you aspire to visit. There are like 400 or some?
Well, it depends on how you count them. There are national parks, there are national monuments, but most of us have something in our backyards. And I think that is one of the most beautiful, parts about nature, is that, even I live outside of Washington, D.C., and right smack dab in the middle of Washington, D.C., beside all of the beautiful monuments that we have Rock Creek Park, and it's a national forest, right in the middle of even a big city. So whether you're in a big city or in a small town, there's lots out there that lets us continue to engage with nature. And I think that we as a country do such a good job of preserving these places and allowing us to go out and visit them and make it accessible. It's silly for any of us to think, hey, I'm going to go out, I'm going to dedicate the next 4.5 months to just walking through a national scenic trail. Most people can't do that, and most people don't want to do that. And I don't blame you for that. There are times where I wonder, but we can all typically find a trail somewhere in our communities to go and continue engaging on these fronts, and to just kind of explore, those basic necessities and figure out, even if you're out for a couple of hours, it still hits you. Did I bring enough water, especially during the summertime when it's so hot? Am I wearing the right shoes? It helps you to really focus in on just those pure necessities of what we need. And as you had talked about earlier, one of the things that I like to talk about is this idea of gratitude and how we look at it. And of course, when you have food, water, and shelter, and those things are not given, um, everything on top is a cherry. But, one of the things that I think about oftentimes, and we talked a little bit about it in the podcast, so I really hope people do check it out, is this idea that we don't have to be grateful for every circumstance that hits us. We don't have to be grateful for the storms that we walk through. We don't have to be grateful, for the tough trails or the uphill rock scrambles. What we can be grateful for, though, is in those circumstances, in those situations where, maybe you're grateful for the fact that, it was tough. I was exhausted by the end of it, but you know what? I made it to the top. So I can
Mhm.
be grateful in that. We can be grateful in just the fact that we had the mental fortitude to even start it. We can find hope in all of that gratitude.
Yes. So, what is giving you reasons to hope these days?
That's a great question. There's a lot out there, I think, that does give me hope. One of the things that of course I find a lot of hope in is just being out there in nature and doing some of these long trails. I mean, I think most of the folks who you talk to who have done a through hike, who have hiked these big long trails of 400, 500, 1,000, 2,000 miles, they come off the trail and you think, these folks spend a lot of time away from people. But the
Mhm.
reality is most of us come back and you ask them, what did you get out of that experience? And most of us will say it restored our faith in humanity, because along the way you are helped by so many people. You might be out there in the middle of nature, but you come across roads, you go through road crossings, and in the through hiking community, we like to call it trail magic. And people will just show up for you. There was one time I was down in Georgia. I had just started my through hike. It was freezing cold outside. It hadn't made it out of the teens for about 3 weeks at this point. Maybe a little less than that. So, I mean, I had been so cold for so long, and my lips were just chapped. How the dry, cold air just pulls it out of you. And I was crossing this road, and this man was stopped there, and he came and he said, "You know what? My wife, she'd kill me if she knew that I drove away without getting you something for those lips." So he drove all the way to town. He bought me some chapstick, drove it back. I've never met this man. I don't know his name. I would thank him profusely if he ever did it, but he went all the way out of his way to drive out, bring me back
Oh,
some chapstick so that I could get just a little bit of relief. And that's one example, but we saw it all the time. I mean, people came out, churches came out and brought hikers food. They made us spaghetti dinners or brought out cookies, or we'd come across a stream that was running and there'd just be a six-pack of Coke sitting in there. And it's this cold soda on a really hot day is so beautiful. And it's just people out there helping people. And it gives you so much hope that, as divided and as harsh as our world can feel today, we're all still humans at the end of it, and we're out there, and whether you're helping a stranger or you're helping somebody in your family, there are folks out there who are just looking out for each other. And I so learned that on the trail, and I still to this day find so much hope in that. Whenever I feel alone, I realize, you know what, there are so many people out there who in little ways or big ways are also finding comfort in the fact that they can help you out. And that was just, you just saw it so often on the trail. You were just constantly being infused with this trail magic, and it came in so many different forms that it really did restore your faith in how beautiful humanity is.
I love that. Brittany, thank you for sharing this with us today. And thank you for your story and just all the courage that you've shown and just being vulnerable and real with us. Everyone, please go and listen to the podcast. I still cry when I hear our conversation, which I think is really powerful because I know what you're going to say now that it's recorded. I guess that's how that works. But so
That's what they tell me.
that's what they tell you. Yeah. But thank you again. And also, everyone, make sure to drop what's giving you reasons to hope this week. And you can tag at Root and Vine News, hashtag reasons to hope. And also give Brittany a follow because she posts these incredible photos of her journeys out on trail that are sure to inspire. And we will hopefully see you all back next week. And get out to your national parks, everyone. Have a great week. Thanks so much.
Bye, guys.
Bye.